The missions change. They always do. My mission changed when I was diagnosed with cancer 2 months ago. Progressing in my career suddenly didn't matter as much, and I've become more focused on practicing gratitude for life's special moments. I've been recalling the feeling of tears on my cheeks when I heard my daughter's first cries, and the smoky taste of the brown sugar old fashioned I had on the first date with my wife. Among those special recollections was the feel of the original Duke Xbox controller in my 10-year-old hands as the Gregorian chant of the Halo CE menu played and I saw the ring rotating on the projection wood grain TV in my parents' living room. Combat Evolved was the formative FPS experience that truly shaped me into the player I am now. That feeling of wonder and awe CE gave me has always resonated and been a core part of my identity as an FPS player. I must have played the CE campaign 50 or more times between 2001 and the Halo 2 release. I grew up in West Virginia, and the LAN parties for multiplayer weren't possible then, so I was obsessed with Combat Evolved campaign up until the launch of Halo 2. But as the series continued to grow, Combat Evolved dropped to my second least favorite of the mainline Halo campaigns. This wasn't because the campaign is bad. Quite the contrary, it's one of the best FPS campaigns of all time. But as FPS games pushed the boundaries forward of what was possible into modern day, the following Halo games felt like they evolved and grew beyond Combat Evolved. I didn't revisit CE's campaign again after Halo 2 launched until the Master Chief Collection. I grew more appreciation for it as I got all of the MCC achievements, but I still preferred it less. I realized that the parts I liked the least about CE comparatively was the more shallow story, second half of the campaign that felt like a retread of earlier missions, gameplay and movement that felt dated, a more limited sandbox, and an art style that I preferred less. Completing all Combat Evolved had to offer through the MCC felt more like an obligation to the series I loved than a desire, and I haven't returned for a playthrough of Combat Evolved's campaign since December of 2014. I have been very excited for Campaign Evolved since it was teased, and now it's time to land on Alpha Halo again 25 years later. I took the fight to the Covenant on a legendary playthrough, and the footage for the video is of early missions to avoid spoilers for any new Spartans. In summary, I believe Campaign Evolved is the definitive way to experience the first installment of the series for anyone who hasn't played Halo before, and is a worthwhile return to Installation 04 for veteran Spartans, despite a few drawbacks. Now, let's talk specifics and spoilers. Remakes have a hard task of being a balancing act of remaining faithful to the original while modernizing an experience without feeling needless. How do you give the nostalgia hit of a classic while weaving worthwhile additions into the experience? Campaign Evolved mostly succeeds in doing this on all fronts. The visuals are the largest leap forward in this remaster. Unreal Engine 5 gives the game a fresh coat of paint, and this is the best Halo has ever looked. The fidelity and textures are awesome, but the eye candy of the Halo universe is portrayed very well in the new engine. Plasma grenades leave a blue stain on surfaces that looks hot to the touch. Fuel rod explosions leave behind a wispy green smoke that looks toxic. And hunter worms squirm as you backsmack them. The environments inspire a sense of wonder. We've all seen the Silent Cartographer demo of waves gently rolling onto the beach, which are stunning. But the biggest standouts for me are the snowy bridge crossings in Assault on the Control Room and the Forerunner halls of the library. The snow drifts on screen with a sense of serenity as you're rolling toward the control room in a Scorpion, blasting ghosts. It's so visually striking that it made me feel the same excitement I did 25 years ago playing that level on snow days from school. Except it's the end of July. The Forerunner architecture appearance will always be a point of contention, but I loved Campaign Evolved's interpretation. The common criticism is that Forerunner structures since Halo 3 have been too shiny and have lost their sense of ancient mystery. I've never felt that way personally, and I think Campaign Evolved does a good job of striking a balance between what I imagined Forerunner architecture, which is an alien race so advanced they devised a way to wipe out all life in the galaxy, would look like all those years ago without being too much of a departure from their original structural designs. The blue hues of the lights lining hallways as you descend into the map room give a sense of exploration, and another nice touch is adding more Forerunner iconography to the doorways. There are nice attention to detail additions as well with the Forerunner art. I was very excited to see helixes included in the library, and they ranged from humanity to even a dog. It's very cool world building and lore support. Without a doubt though, the best visual upgrades come in the form of the flood enemies and areas. Flood combat forms look fleshy and bloated. They dismember in brown and green pus explosions. The pure forms sprout tendrils from their bodies as they take damage. I felt the familiar horror of an all-consuming parasite again when I came upon the first room of 343 Guilty Spark with a wall of biomass pulsing red, orange, and brown. The flood visuals continue to shine in later missions like Keys as you see how it's consuming a Covenant structure, and it gives me hope that we can one day see a fully consumed version of High Charity with these disgustingly satisfying visuals. The Unreal Engine changes pushes Halo further in its direction of being visually unique and wondrous. This is how my 10-year-old brain imagined Halo Combat Evolved looking way back in 2001. Campaign Evolved is distinctly Combat Evolved with a little dash of Halo Infinite mixed in from a gameplay perspective. The shooter design of the early 2000s shows up here and harkens back to the days of corridor shooters. Halo is a classic because it gave the first experience of opening the FPS genre up to a large and more open, varied world, with exploring the ring and traversing sprawling environments toward a mysterious Forerunner spire in the distance. But some of the gameplay does show its age when you're holding a doorway in a Covenant cruiser, dipping in and out of cover to fire a plasma pistol down long hallways as elites pepper you with plasma. The corridor shooter sections can feel a bit outdated and simplistic, but they're by no means bad and do an excellent job of remaining faithful to what Combat Evolved was. And I think that's a good thing. Every game seems to push the genre forward with more movement or mechanics, so it's somewhat refreshing to return to the basics with this corridor shooter gameplay, simple but adrenaline-packed warthog runs, and eliminate waves of enemies to advance encounters. Campaign Evolved is a return to the classics with some new tools, among them the fuel rod cannon. This was the most satisfying of the new but old weapon additions, and it comes in clutch on Legendary in the back half of the campaign. But there are some warts in the gameplay. The Covenant AI can behave in some strange ways, but the most glaring of these AI issues to me was hunters being stun-locked and not reacting to you when you get behind them. Even on Legendary, taking down a pair of hunters felt like a trivial task of running behind one of them to get off a few melee hits to drop them. I wish they were more reactive, or its brother hunter reacted more aggressively to knock you out of position from behind the other one to deal damage. I do think the new AI does shine with the pure tank flood form. It will periodically stop to spit out infection forms and turn its back to you to shield its face for protection. Seeing this flood form realized in this way is very satisfying. The infection forms also pose a threat for the first time in the series. I found myself carrying an assault rifle after their introduction, as they're no longer a pest to be ignored, but a real threat if you allow them to swarm you. The added touch of an infection form being able to attach itself to Chief's visors and scratch at it with its tendrils to obscure your vision is a nice touch that adds more tension to the flood levels and makes them feel like a parasite desperately clawing to get inside your armor. Even with some of the AI weirdness, Campaign Evolved has the same floaty and satisfying combat updated in modern ways, but it is still unmistakably Combat Evolved gameplay. The story of Campaign Evolved remains mostly untouched from its original. Halo Studios included some excellent alterations that likely weren't possible in 2001, like the Pillar of Autumn being broken in half and needing to be traversed through the missing sections buried in sand during the final Warthog run. They flesh out the world of Halo during moments like Keyes mentioning his daughter as he hands the Magnum to Chief, and the addition of the cutscene before the library made me smile as a spark connects the Forerunner structure to its significance. It's moments like these that make CE's campaign feel more connected to the events that followed in the sequels. In gameplay, the world building continues in the form of interfaction fights between the Covenant and the Flood in the later levels. It was a sight to see multiple pure tank forms ganging up on hunters in the snowy fields of Two Betrayals, and then later again in the green coolant pool below Truth and Reconciliation during Keyes. Moments like these made the second half of the campaign feel like the scramble to destroy the ring more intense, and it gives the Flood the buildup of the galaxy-consuming parasite they deserve. The addition of an ending cutscene of the Warthog run gives me even more hope that the Flood can continue to be improved upon if there are future remakes of Halo 2 and 3, which seem to be the case based on one hilarious cutscene of Johnson and another tease of a cutscene if you complete the campaign on Legendary. I'm hopeful that the stories of future remakes can be built upon based on Campaign Evolved's additions. Campaign Evolved also includes 3 prequel missions and a morgue full of skulls that modify any mission in a potentially staggering amount of variety. While the prequel missions aren't the strongest aspect of the remake, they do a decent job in fleshing out Chief and Johnson's relationships just a bit more. They introduce the standoff relationship of Spartans and ODSTs to the main games, and tie together their missions with later introductions of the Covenant homeworld. They're 3 enjoyable outings, and it was a good time fighting brutes and experiencing sandbox editions brought backward in time. And the set piece of the space battle flexes the potential of more vehicular combat with the Unreal Engine. The new additions that shine the brightest in this remake are the remix options. Allowing a random number of skulls in a mission adds a lot of variety. Having a Flood pure form burst through a boarding craft on the Pillar of Autumn made me jump, and playing with these skulls on forced me to be on my toes in terms of utilizing the full sandbox in missions where I previously didn't. Going up against the Flood on the Silent Cartographer with the standard noob combo loadout, for example, turned the prior stop and pop combat against elites into a mad dash for the beach. I always return to the last 3 levels of Halo 3 and Midnight from Halo 4 when I have a campaign itch to scratch, and I can see myself adding Remix Campaign Evolved into that rotation. This remake isn't all steps forward though. Most of my issues with Campaign Evolved fall into the realm of technical issues. There are issues with reload audio syncing, reload animations appearing unfinished, and strange carryovers between checkpoints. The assault rifle reload audio never synced to the animation for me. The Magnum reload animation appeared stiff and is a version of the Halo 5 CE Magnum reload. And I had multiple checkpoints load with the active camo I was carrying applied to the weapon model, but not Chief himself. There's also strange omissions to not include a setting toggle for film grain, which gives a blurry filter to the world. I know there are methods to disable this on PC, but not including more visual settings is a head scratcher. There's also a delay in weapon swapping and firing, which makes some of the combat feel unresponsive. And being knocked out of sprint with any damage makes me question its inclusion at all, as it feels like an inclusion that wasn't necessary. Small details were omitted from the original Combat Evolved, which makes the world and characters feel less lifelike. For example, Marines don't hold up their hands in excitement when you drive a Warthog off cliffs. And Guilty Spark doesn't retort, completely unnecessary, if you shoot him during the trek through the library. These missing in-game moments are small and likely unnoticeable to new players, But to veteran Spartans, they seem like some of the love that was put into CE is missing. I can't help but wonder if the release date was moved up to the summer to avoid a remake competing with the stacked fall releases we're seeing, and if more time would have allowed for some extra polish. Some of the technical issues may be patched at a later date, so it's worth keeping an eye on. The cutscenes and directions of them can also feel stiff and off at times. While most of them had me grinning, like the addition of the space combat going on outside of the Pillar of Autumn in its opening, some other cutscenes left me puzzled to how unnatural combat animations and facial expressions of Cortana and Johnson felt. Everyone has their favorite interpretation of Cortana, but this version comes off as a more combative and cold version toward Chief at times, rather than the witty and playful interpretation of her in Combat Evolved. 25 years later, and I'm no longer the 10-year-old fumbling with the cumbersome OG Xbox controller to noob combo elites. I'm a father, a husband, and a more reflective person that's learning more every day about appreciating the special moments. Moments that cause you to stop and savor the excitement while wishing you could relive past joys. Campaign Evolved is a faithful remake that did a good job of bringing those feelings back for me while modernizing it for future replays. I'm already plotting Legendary All Skulls On strategies to complete my 100% record of Halo games, but I'm looking forward to it this time. Campaign Evolved will be a game I show my daughter when she's old enough, and I hope it gives her the same sense of wonder and awe that it's made me relive from my childhood. I think Campaign Evolved is a good exercise in looking to the past to set the stage for a great journey into the coming years for Halo, for new players and veterans. It gave me the same sense of awe and wonder, but not because of what it is, but what Halo can be. I hope the mission for Halo changes to a future that pushes Chief further along the reclamation of the series being a trailblazer in FPS games, while looking more to the past to refine and build upon.